Well, hi Blue Marble Riders. I'm out and about today on my 2014 Suzuki Vstrom 1000. Suzuki lost this bike for 2 years, so I bought it in 2016. So that's why you're probably saying, why isn't this a 6-year review? I've only had it from you for 4 years because it sat in a box for 2 years. I thought it was about time that I gave you my 4-year review, 25,000 kilometers, warts and all, of what it's like to own and live with this bike. So stick around, stay tuned, and I'll get right on with that after these brief messages. I'm here today to review perhaps one of the most underrated bikes on the road, certainly overlooked, often underreported. I've got 2 other more exotic bikes. I spend less time on those put together than I do on this. So I'm just as guilty as the media of not reporting out on this bike. This is my day-to-day commuter, my tourer, the do-everything bike in any weather. And yet, I don't say much about it. So I'm about to put that right.
Well, here is the beast fully dressed, and here she is, undressed.
First, a little bit about the Vstrom specs. This is the 2nd generation Vstrom. They had a 1st generation, they stopped making that, and then 2 years later they came out with a subsequent one. All the subsequent Vstroms basically the same.
Dry, this bike weighs 468 pounds or 502 pounds curb weight, which means all fluids and 2/3 of a tank of fuel. Just for comparison, the KTM 1290 is 504 pounds and the BMW R1200 GS Adventure is given at 580 pounds. Not sure if they're wet or dry. Suzuki's very good, they always give their weights wet. It's a 1037cc liquid-cooled V-twin producing 100 horsepower at 8,000 RPM, 77 foot-pounds of torque at 4,000 RPM. ABS is non-switchable and has 3 levels of traction control, including off. It's shiftable on the fly. It's a 6-speed chain drive, has a slipper clutch, clutch assist, high output magneto at lower RPMs.
Suspension 43mm upside down front forks, fully adjustable, 3-way, and then the rear shock is adjustable for preload and rebound damping.
The brakes on the Suzuki Vstrom 1000 are awesome. It comes with twin discs on the front, and on the back you've got the smaller 300mm disc with 2 pot calipers, more than adequate to stop the bike. Monstrously amazing stopping power on this bike. Fuel economy for me when commuting or touring is about 5 litres per 100 kilometers, although 4.8 litres per 100 kilometers, about 56 to 59 miles per imperial gallon for you imperial guys, is often seen 2 up or when touring. If you wind it over 4,500 RPM, then expect the average to drop to about 5.5 to 6.5 litres per 100 kilometers. This is still very good for a big bike, although it can't match the stupendous 77 miles per imperial gallon I got 2 up in the States on the Vstrom 650.
Finally, the seat height. About 33.5 inches. It's a fairly tall bike compared with some. Not as tall as most of the other adventure bikes that it competes with, though. For you people in metric, 850 millimeters. I'm 6 foot, 34 inch inseam, and so I can flat foot this no problem at all. Anyone around 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", I don't think you'll have difficulty riding this bike. There is a low seat option in it.
We've done most of the stats. Let's just briefly go through the instrumentation before we get on to the real 4-year owner's in-depth review of the Suzuki Vstrom 1000. The instruments include an analog tachometer and a brightness adjustable LCD speedometer. The LCD portion of it is really easy to read, as is the analog side of it. This comes from an owner survey on the 1st gen Vstrom 1000, where Suzuki made improvements to the instrument cluster. LCD readouts include an odometer, dual trip meters, gear position indicator, coolant, ambient temperatures, the voltage, riding range, the average fuel consumption, the instantaneous fuel consumption, traction control mode you're in, a fuel gauge, and a clock. There are several warning lights as usual. What I really like about it is that no matter what the light, this display is super clear. You can see the range on this right now. I filled up about 50 kilometers ago. It's giving me about 372 kilometers, and I have done over 420 on it. On average though, you're going to get about 360, 370 mixed city highway.
Okay, so what's the recommended service interval, cost of ownership for this bike? We've gone through the specs and all that stuff, but what's it like actually to own one of these? I'm not talking about consumables, tires, brakes, and insurance, because that changes from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but Suzuki service, what's that like? Okay, so the first break-in service for the bike, including all checks, lubes, oil change, cost me $197 from my local dealer, Suzuki dealer. Not bad when compared with my Z900 RS over there, which cost me $336 for the same thing a few months ago. For me, I change the oil every 5,000 kilometers, as I said, with Suzuki pit kits, and that's $59.99, $60 for all of you who don't like pennies.
And then after that, you do the oil and filter every 6,000 kilometers, 4,000 miles. Valves are checked every 24,000 kilometers or 16,000 miles, and they recommend a replacement of plugs every 12,000 kilometers or 8,000 miles. The air filter, which is underneath the tank, should be replaced every 18,000 kilometers or 12,000 miles. One of the things you're going to find about the Vstrom is it is an amazing bike as far as value for money goes. I replaced my air filter at 6,000 kilometers when there was a recall on the ECU for stalling. Although my bike never suffered, Suzuki replaced the module, and seeing as they were removing tank and plastics, I got them to drop in a new air filter as I'd come back from a long ride across a desert and decided that would be prudent. A big 24,000 kilometer service includes valves as well as oil and filter, but excludes the air filter. I got a filter put in as it had been 18,000 kilometers since the last air filter had been put in and the tanks and plastics were off. So why not? They changed the coolant during that service. They installed my first set of new Iridium plugs, synced the throttle bodies, tested, cleaned and inspected everything. This service cost me $590. The only shocker was the price of the Iridium plugs at $27 a plug. And the bike needs 4 of them. Yes, 4. There are 2 per cylinder. So while that might sound expensive, I've had several owners, KTM owners and BMW owners, giving me feedback on some of my videos, and some of them saying you need to take a second mortgage out to get the same service done on a BMW or KTM. So how about those warts I hear you saying? You promised some warts. Okay.
Stock, the shield is an abomination. It is the same on the 650. Now, I've heard people say they have no problem with it, but I'm guessing they're short in the body and they don't sit that high. But if you're a 6-footer or above, you are going to get among the worst buffet that you've ever had. Enough that your teeth chatter and your vision blurs. You will get a headache, you'll feel slightly nauseous. You have to get rid of it. Even the upgrade from Suzuki, I've heard, isn't great. So what I did is I went with what a lot of people go with, is the Givi airflow. This is the 18-inch. At highway speeds, the air goes over my head, even with a bill, and I don't get any buffet. And I have it on the middle setting. So that's my stock setting right there. Some of the bikes can get what's called clutch chudder. Clutch chudder is nothing to do with reliability. It will not affect the performance. You do not have to return the bike. It's not going to cause any mechanical issue. It's a noise and a vibration that the clutch basket gives off. You can get it changed. There are various people who will upgrade it for you for about $300. You can either send yours in or get one from them. It's your call. It is something that is a cosmetic issue, not a mechanical issue. If you're in stop-and-go traffic, even though it's got a lovely hydraulic clutch, it can start to get tiresome working it backwards and forwards.
Other mods I've made to it are, I have raised, and I'll come around this side here, I've raised the handlebars by about ½ an inch with some bar risers. It wasn't really necessary, but it made it just a titch more comfortable for me. I'm being about 6 foot, and I was feeling that I was having to reach slightly forward on longer runs, and having it up about ½ an inch, perfect. The other thing I've done is I ported over a couple of things to this bike from my 650, one of which was my top box. This is the plate I needed to use to convert the Vstrom to be capable of taking that top box from my 650. There is also a tank bag that I've ported over, and there you can see the tank bag ring. The great thing is this fits the 650 as well as the 1000. So if you, like me, come from a 650, that makes this bike even more economical. It's very easy to swap some luggage components over, the tank bag being one. So these are both SW Motec products, rebranded by Suzuki. And they're both quality products. I'm very impressed with them.
Speaking of which, the luggage is really easy. There is no large frame around here at all, just 3 fixation points, or should I say 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And all you do is literally put the case on like that. It takes a little wiggle and jiggle. It's on. You put the key in. It's the same key that goes in the lock. You push it down and bingo, it's locked on. A lot of people complain about these. I have no issue with them. They've been absolutely reliable. As you can see, I've got all my gym stuff in there. And this is the small one with the exhaust pipe cutout on it. They work really well. So windshield, bar risers, tires, tank bag. That's it. Things I love about this bike. First, I like that Suzuki polled owners of the first generation Vstrom and asked what they liked and what they wanted improved. Suzuki implemented most of these recommendations, and that's how you build a bike. Evolution, not revolution. I love this engine. It's known for its accessible real-world power. I love the huge wave of torque that comes at 3,500 RPM. It reaches max torque at just under 4,000 RPM, and it keeps the curve flat on tap through 8,000 RPM. The power is linear. It's a 30-degree slope that just rises evenly from idle, and what that means is instant acceleration. Instant acceleration. Grunt, real world power. If your hand contacts that grip anywhere, you're going to have power. Taking a close look at the tacho, you will notice it redlines at 9,000 RPM. You will very rarely ever take the bike up there. You just simply don't need to. You are not going to need to rev the nuts off this thing. You'll leave higher revving 3 and 4 cylinder bikes dead at the lights. They will overhaul you at the track. I didn't buy this for the track. At 3,500 RPM, the Vstrom's already producing about 70 foot-pounds of torque. At this RPM, the KTM 1190 is cranking out about 60 foot-pounds of torque. So again, real-world power, this is producing at lower down than the much-vaunted KTM 1190, potentially the 1292. The BMW, I think, torque is about the same at the same level, but you're looking at a bike that's nearly 100 pounds more in weight. So it's not going to feel quite the same low down. Both of those bikes, as soon as you get over, 5,000 or 6,000 RPM, are going to pull away, but not as much as you would think. The other thing I love about it is it's so reliable. This bike is bulletproof. It's well documented. This engine has been around in one guise or another since 1997. I think it was the TL1000R and the S that they introduced then. At that point, this engine produced 130, 135 brake horsepower. This is down, as I said, to about 100. They've detuned it. What that means is this makes much more torque, as we've already said, low down, and it's going to last a lot longer than those engines because it's just not under stress. This is well known in this guise. This engine has circumnavigated the world several times. The maintenance is next to nothing. Electronic aids, they're amazingly unobtrusive. The only way you can tell they're on is when you turn them off. If you turn traction control off, then you can start to lift the front wheel. If you take it off-road, you'll notice it immediately. Traction control 2, which is what I use for rain, the only way you know it's there is when you turn the throttle, you don't get the expected grunt and acceleration. It just smoothly takes off. There's no chuddering, there's no misfiring, there's no rev limiter feeling at all. The traction control on this is seamless. The new versions of these have lean-sensitive ABS and traction control. This one doesn't. Although I'm not sure with an ECU replacement whether it does or not. I haven't tested it. I can't find anywhere online that says that that is the case. I'm not going to qualify this by saying because this is a budget bike, I'm surprised by the suspension, but I am. The suspension is fantastic on this bike. I've ridden lots of bikes, and I'm constantly amazed by how good the suspension is on this bike. It comes from factory fairly stiff, which I like. The factory settings are to my liking, but many people find them just a little too stiff on these upside down 43mm forks. However, the fronts are fully adjustable, and the rear shock is adjustable with preload and rebound damping, as I said earlier. The rear shock is factory set, and I'll show you how they do that, to 11 clicks. There is the clicker right there. You can see it. Okay, and this is set to 11 clicks. That's what I run it as. At 0 clicks is the softest, and it goes all the way up to 26 clicks, the hardest setting. This bike has an incredible carrying capacity. I have carried myself, my wife, and 80 pounds of luggage thousands of miles through the northern states in incredibly hot temperatures, and the suspension has never got soft
or mushy. It does its job really well, keeping the ride height up and also making sure that it's never underdamped.
If you've got everything off it and it's just you, it feels very sporty. It is on the firm side. You can soften it up if you want. There are complaints that off-road it comes too hard from the factory. But that's why you've got adjusters on it. So I'm not sure I understand those complaints. You can't expect to ride on the dirt the same as you would on the road. You're going to need to adjust the suspension. The gearbox, there's not much to say here except it's positive, it's smooth, you know when you've changed. It's not a Silicone gearbox, there's a definite click, which I like actually, the positivity there. And I've never in 26,000 kilometers found a false neutral. The chassis. The chassis on this is very narrow compared to much larger bikes. It's a V-twin. The engine doesn't stick out at the sides like the Boxer. It's not a square 4 or an inline triple. It's very narrow. The seat bulks out wide at the back, but in here it gets quite narrow. It's easy to get your legs around it. The tank is scalloped in here. Let me quote from 2014 Cycle World Shootout review between the KTM 1190 and the R1200 GS from BMW. They say, because the Vstrom has an excellent chassis and is lighter and lower than the others, it handles beautifully. The 468-pound dry 1000 delivers back-road corners like that was its dedicated purpose. And I have noticed the same thing. This thing handles. It's not in the same league as the Z900 RS or a sport bike. But for what it is, you will be amazed at how you can carve corners on this thing. The fork digested everything we bounced over without a hiccup, and the shock only bottomed on some of the whoops. You can't turn off the ABS, so we had to be mindful of that when braking on slick terrain. But as I said before, pop the seat and take off the ABS fuse, and your ABS is off. So it's not a great big deal. If you know you're going to go for a concerted few hours on the dirt, do it. It's very quick and easy to do. Am I happy with the bike? Yes, I am. Absolutely 100%. I love the Kawasaki Z900 RS. I love my Husaberg. They're incredible bikes. But this is the bike I use most often, the bike that comes with me everywhere, and if I've got anything to do, anything at all, if I have to choose one bike, it's going to be this one. The Vstrom is unfashionable, hugely underrated, and too frequently overlooked by riders who read mainstream media perhaps and are looking for something with prestige. If you're looking though for something that's going to do the job of those other bikes for far less money, not only initial cost but running costs, and it's going to put a smile on your face whenever you ride this thing, the big torquey twin is a hoot to ride. If you're looking for that, then walk on no further than this bike.
So thank you for watching my ownership review of the 2014 Suzuki Vstrom 1000. As you can tell, I really like it. It fits me to a glove. It's been a great companion, a great bike. It's done everything I've asked of it, and that's been extensive, from off-road 2-up to long-distance touring to my daily commuting to scratching around roads. And it's done it in comfort. It's done it easily, it's done it with power to burn, fuel economy, reliability, and low cost of ownership. What more can you ask for? Is it a glamour bike? No, it is totally underrated, absolutely underrated. And you know what? I love that. The price is low, the fun factor is high, and the finishing on this bike is top-notch. The paint, the quality of the fit and finish on this bike is absolutely amazing. Because this isn't seen as a premium bike, they can't charge the big bucks for it. But look out there at the popularity of these things, and you will notice first of all is how many people love these bikes. I do believe the fuzz are even speeding.
Once again, thanks for watching everyone. If this is the first time you've watched, please consider subscribing. I do product reviews, motorcycle reviews, off-road and on-road vlogs, as well as tours. Don't forget to follow me on social media, that's Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, and to like, and especially, I'm begging you here folks, subscribe. This is the BlueMarbleRider, out.